Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 9 of the Giro d'Italia 2023. Today is the big test. The individual time trial is the one of the most important stages in a stage race because this is the one time when your teammates just cannot help you. We have multiple big battles to pay attention to on today's stage 9 because we have Remco Evenepoel and Primož Roglič, the best two riders in the Giro d'Italia as far as we know anyways at this point in time. Let me remind you, in yesterday's stage 8, when we're talking Theo Gegenhardt and Geraint Thomas, they were afraid to ride with Primož Roglič at the finish after the last climb downhill all the way to the line. Now, you guys say, well, who rides with Primož Roglič? I said yesterday you have to ride with Primož Roglič because it's all 6 kilometers downhill. Now, if there was another climb coming after that finish line and they had to go back up another climb, I'd say, guys, you guys are knuckleheads if you're going to pull with Primož Roglič. But when it's 6 kilometers all downhill, you got Remco Evenepoel, quality rider. That's got to be the GC favorite here at the Giro. At the top of that summit on yesterday's stage 8, then you know you got to work with Primož Roglič if you want a shot at winning the Giro d'Italia. Well, finally they came to their senses and they started pulling, and I brought that up for one reason and one reason only. A lot of time people call the Butterfly Effect a recap show. I don't like it when you call it a recap show. I analyze bike races. I teach coaching. I teach the small little techniques that are going on in the bike racing, but I do not recap. Anybody can recap a bike race up here on the Butterfly Effect, telling stories, analyzing, and giving you guys the details of what the Butterfly is all about, what the Butterfly Effect is all about, because in bike racing, everything you do until the day you go back home, and even then some of your training will affect everything. But just like the Butterfly Effect, every small detail you do right or do wrong affects you as you go through the bike race. And yesterday's stage, going over the top of that last climb and finishing 6K longer, could have effects later when we get here in the Giro d'Italia if things are getting really tight and close. Now, let's get into today's individual time trial because 35 kilometers, pancake flat, but it's wet, it's messy out there. Now, when you're racing in these kind of conditions, you have to be careful. You have to be careful when you leave the ramp because it's going to be incredibly slippery. You have to be careful when you go through the first turn. That's just a few hundred meters after you leave the ramp. You have to be careful through the roundabouts, and you certainly have to be careful when you're on the cobblestones. And today's course, like I said, flat, and it's pretty well open. It's not that dangerous, but it does have all those little twists and turns at different points in times throughout this 35 kilometers. So you can lose a second or two if you're not handling your bike correctly. And it's all about the little details up here on the Butterfly Effect that can decide whether or not if you win or lose races. Now, when we get into the race, it's Michael Matthews, and you see him reaching down with his hand down there as his chain's dropped off his one by. He's trying to fight to get it back up. The Jaco Lula rider finally realizes he can't, and he's going to have to pull over, put his chain back on, and he has problems with that, so the mechanic's coming over with a fresh bike. Then we see Michael Matthews hop on his bike. No problem for Michael Matthews, although it's kind of rare to see a one-by chain pop off a bike. That's the reason why I brought it up. But Michael Matthews across the line, well down on any chance of winning today's individual time trial. When we start looking at some of the other competition that's coming, we see Rowan Dennis. I want to point out Rowan Dennis here because he rides for Jumbo-Visma, and he is a past world time trial champion. So you got to wonder, what kind of form does Rowan Dennis have when he's been added to the roster here 1 week before the Giro started? Well, we see the Australian rider when he crosses the line. He's down on general class. He's down on today's stage leader here, Michael Hepburn, by about 55 seconds. So we know Rowan Dennis still doesn't have any top form. Pay attention to that later because that might come important when we start getting into these second 2 weeks and in the mountain stages here at the Giro. That's the Butterfly Effect when you start bringing in riders 1 week before a Grand Tour like the Giro is, super late and possibly not being on the right form. Now we start going into the next rider that's going to get into the hot seat. It's Bach Mollema from Trek Segafredo as he comes flying across the line, 14 seconds up on Michael Hepburn's time to put Trek Segafredo rider into the hot seat. We start to see Bruno Armai leave the ramp from FDJ, and just behind Bruno Armai is going to be his teammate Stefan Kuhn. Stefan Kuhn, along with Rowan Dennis, big-time favorites to win today's individual time trial stage if they're on form. Stefan Kuhn's always coming up a lot short in the individual time trials lately, but he is the past individual time trial champion of the European Championships. So we know this guy's got some power in the legs. We look at the form of Bruno Armai after he leaves the ramp. He's super motivated, time trialing well. We see Stefan Kuhn, same thing. He's back there flying. When Bruno Armai comes across the finish line, he's 51 seconds up on Bach Mollema's time as we see Bach Mollema leaving the hot seat. Don't get off the ground, though, Bruno Armai, and head to the hot seat because your teammate, Stefan Kuhn, still isn't crossing the line, and he was your guy starting just behind you. So once we see the FDJ teammate rider of Bruno Armai, Stefan Kuhn, cross the line, he's in the hot seat because he's 4 seconds faster than his teammate Bruno Armai when he crosses the line. That's FDJ sitting first and second here at stage 9 of the Giro d'Italia. Now we're going to start seeing the big favorites start to leave the ramp. We got Theo Gegenhardt back there from Team Ineos and Garrett Thomas just behind him. Well, Theo Gegenhardt's flying. He's going through all the corners, scrubbing the barriers, trying to get marginal gains any place he can on this stage 9 to try to put himself in with a shot at winning the general classification here at the Giro d'Italia, because let me remind you, he's a 2020 Giro champion already, and he wants to repeat that feat here in 2023. With Theo Gegenhardt going full gas, we see as he comes through the first time check, he's up on Stefan Kuhn's time by 1 second, and that means he's on flying form here for Team Ineos. Theo Gegenhardt will pull it all the way across the line to dislodge Stefan Kuhn by 2 seconds to put Team Ineos in the hot seat on stage 9. Now the only problem for Theo Gegenhardt, just like Bruno Armai, don't get up to the hot seat just yet, because with 500 meters to go, there's 30 seconds still on the clock for his teammate G. Thomas to be able to get in the hot seat here today on stage 9. If he's at 500 meters or 485, it's going to make a big time difference, right? Well, Garrett Thomas is going all the way to the line, doesn't throw his bike, but will put himself in the hot seat 1 second faster than Theo Gegenhardt. So with that in mind, we got G. Thomas, race leader here. We got his teammate Theo Gegenhardt sitting second. Then we got 2 FDJ riders, Stefan Kuhn and Bruno Armai, rounding out the top 4. Now, we still got the big favorites though, right? Primoz Roglic is out on the road. He left the ramp. Right after he left the ramp, I noticed Primoz Roglic, he didn't leave the ramp and just keep sprinting out on his bullhorns there. He left the ramp sitting down on his bike, went through the first corner, easily pulled off his right hand there to get into the arrow position on his bike, and then he started flowing on the bike. We see Remco Evenepoel back there, and Remco Evenepoel comes out of the ramp looking a bit different than Primoz Roglic, as he's already out of the saddle as soon as he's off the bottom of the ramp. Goes into the first right-hand corner, a few hundred meters into today's stage 9, and then he jumps into his super aero tuck TT position that Remco Evenepoel is so well known for already this early in his career. As the 2 riders are flying, it's Luknesen, the pink jersey wearer, that'll leave the ramp after those 2. Last rider to leave the ramp, Luknesen, but can he hold on to the pink jersey? Nobody believes he can, because you got Remco Evenepoel and Primoz Roglic, who have already left just in front. Now Remco Evenepoel's up there, and all of a sudden the clock flashes 27 seconds up on Primoz Roglic. Remco Evenepoel seems like he's flying right now at this point in time, early in stage 9 individual time trial with a 27-second advantage, and they haven't even come across the first time check. Well, when they do come across the time check, Primoz Roglic is down 20 seconds to the best time in front of him of Garrett Thomas. Now Remco Evenepoel comes through 11 seconds up on G. Thomas. This means Primoz Roglic is in trouble at this point in time in the TT if Remco Evenepoel can stay on the gas. Now, Primoz Roglic, he's going to lose just a little bit more time at the second time check. He's 23 seconds down on G. Thomas, but this is when things start to switch big time here at the individual time trial for stage 9, because Remco Evenepoel, he comes through the second time check even on time with Garrett Thomas. Now, where this is a big time switch here from the beginning when we saw the first time check to Primoz Roglic 27 seconds down. Now all of a sudden we see Primoz Roglic 23 seconds down to Garrett Thomas, but this is the second time check, not the first, and Remco Evenepoel has given up time to Garrett Thomas. Sure, he's even with the Ineos rider, but we know right now Primoz Roglic, he's only 23 seconds down on Remco Evenepoel. What's going to happen in the last third of this course? Well, things are going to get a little bit more dicey for Remco Evenepoel. He's going to have to start pulling out all the tricks all the way to the line as we see him come through the cobblestone turn there. After he makes the turn solid, we see he's got the gutter there and the smooth line in the center of the cobblestones. As he keeps coming up to the drainage gates, he just moves his bike a little bit to the left, comes back to the center, one time to the right, comes back to the center, one time to the left, comes back to the center, trying to get marginal gains and go as fast as he can because he's even time right now on Geraint Thomas. Primoz Roglic, who is up front and had lost so much time at the first time check, a little bit more seconds at the second. Now he's coming into the finish and he'll lose 16 seconds when he crosses the line to Geraint Thomas. And remember, Tao Gegenhardt's sitting second right now on today's stage, so he's losing time to Geraint Thomas too. How much time, though, will the Slovenian lose to Remco Evenepoel back there, who's still flying? Well, it's 500 meters to go, thereabouts. He's got about a 30-second window to get across the line if he's going to win today's stage. So is he at 500? Is he at 485? Well, that was the same dilemma Tao Gegenhardt and G. Thomas had to discuss right there when Geraint Thomas was coming through at this very same spot. Remco Evenepoel, same situation. He pushes the bike as hard as he can to the line, crosses the line 1 second faster than Geraint Thomas, and to put himself into the hot seat with what looks like a for sure victory here on stage 9. Only rider left out on the course is the race leader Luknesen, who will lose about a minute and 15 seconds on today's stage. Finished just inside of the top 20 though for Luknesen, for the DSM rider, who will hold on to a top 10 in the general classification. But Remco Evenepoel, with that ride of today's stage, winning by 1 second over Team Ineos, second and third here on today's stage. That'll put himself into the pink jersey as race leader here at the Giro d'Italia. Now, what happened to Primoz Roglic? Well, Roglic drops from just being behind Remco Evenepoel. He'll drop into third on the general classification. Geraint Thomas will move up to second in the GC here at the Giro d'Italia, with his teammate Tao Gegenhardt sitting fourth. Almeida, UAE team members, to be fifth on the general classification when today's stage 9 wraps up. He had a pretty solid TT for sure, went in the top 10 of the stage, but he had a little bit of a hiccup in the middle of the stage when he had his visor and he was trying to adjust it and has hit a bump and it went up and knocked his visor off. So still a solid ride for Almeida to cross the line. Now, when we check out the details of today's race, this is the butterfly effect, right? I like to analyze the races. What went wrong for Geraint Thomas, and where could he have made up 1 second on Remco Evenepoel? Well, let's take a look at one of the corners that he's setting up for, one of the left turns. If you see him coming into this left turn, he's in the center of the road. On the right side is a couple of the drain gutters there, but looks like you could ride over these. He prefers to sit in the center of the road, and when he comes through the corner, he's coming from the center into the inside, not hitting the apex of the turn, which causes him to have to go wide as he's coming out where that island is. That'll cost you a second for sure. We fast forward the film up a little bit to under 7 kilometers to go. When you get into the city center here where it's all cobblestones, and we'll see Geraint Thomas, same scenario. He's coming from the center on the cobblestones, making the right turn and not taking all the way from the outside to the inside to all the way a smooth line on the outside to come out. When we look at how he went down that straightaway after the cobblestones right turn there, you'll see he's all the way against the fencing. That was the same section where Remco Evenepoel was just flicking his bike around all the gutters in the middle of the road where it was smooth cobblestones, and he can pick up some more speed while Geraint Thomas was losing speed. So that's 3 sections at least. You'll say, Chris, maybe that first turn where he's going left, maybe you couldn't go all the way to the right because there just wasn't enough room. Well, let's back the film back up then and let's show you Primoz Roglic. We all say the Slovenian has a little bit of bike handling problems, right? Well, the Slovenian went much closer to the right side of the road coming up to that left turn, which kept him flowing through that turn faster, which means you're making up some time. Now, Remco Evenepoel, who had a flying start to the race, said later in his interview that they went out just a little bit too hard, and that cost him some marginal gains too, right? Go out too hard and you started to blow. He said in the 1/3 of the end of the course, that's where he got a little bit of chance to recover when you came through the city centers, talking about that same cobblestone section, because every time when you're going through these corners, when it's wet and miserable and slippery like this, you know you can back off a little bit sooner, you could get a little bit more rest. So Remco Evenepoel said coming through that city section is where he was able to finally back off the throttle a little bit, recover a little bit, get his legs back underneath him, and start going all the way to the finish to be able to win today's Stage 9 individual time trial here at the Giro d'Italia and put Soudal Quickstep back up in the pink jersey when we start 2 days later at Stage 10. Now, Remco Evenepoel, can he be happy about today's stage? I don't think so. I don't think the Belgian kid is happy at all. I don't think he was planning on winning Stage 9 by 1 second over Geraint Thomas, 2 seconds over Theo Gegenhardt, and 17 seconds up on Primoz Roglic. He cannot be happy with today's race at all when you look at today's results, with the exception that he's in the pink. You're like, Chris, you're a knucklehead. He's wearing pink. This is not what he expected. Was this what I expected? It was exactly what I thought might happen when you're calculating in the crashes and you saw him get dropped on yesterday's Stage 8 from Primoz Roglic. So I expected that he would probably have 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds on Primoz Roglic, and I didn't expect both the Ineos riders, Theo Gegenhardt and Geraint Thomas, to have such a strong ride here to go second and third on the stage. Now, Stefan Kuhn, who was in the hot seat for a short time until the double Ineos riders came through and bumped him out, in his interview, he looked incredibly dejected about, again, being so close to a win, but coming up short with 3 riders finishing in front of him. We started looking at other interviews. We look at Luke Nissen. He said he was happy with how everything's gone so far, and he's looking forward to doing something more spectacular here in the Giro d'Italia in later stages. We look at Theo Gegenhardt's interview. The kid was definitely depressed, I should say, or just as calm as a bomb, maybe. Maybe he's not depressed, that's the wrong word. I'll say he's as calm as a bomb and should be working in a mortuary possibly, because it was definitely some low energy there from Theo Gegenhardt every time you see an interview from the British kid. But he is sitting in a fantastic position, top 5 of the Giro right now, getting ready to start Stage 10. So Team Ineos are in a fabulous position with Geraint Thomas, Theo Gegenhardt, and let's look a little bit further down in the top 10 of the classification. That's Pavel Sivakov down there sitting in the top 10. So Ineos have 3 riders in the top 10. So far, this first 9 stages of the Giro d'Italia have gone their way perfectly in terms of not using a lot of energy and avoiding a lot of the crashes here in this first week of racing of the Giro d'Italia. So stages 10 and on, we should have all kinds of interesting stories up here on the Butterfly Effect to analyze for you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.